This podcast is brought to you by the IIEA, sharing ideas, shaping policy.
Welcome everybody to this session. You're most welcome to a topic which I think couldn't be more timely, and we're very lucky to have somebody who really understands the background with us. My name is Catherine Meenan and I chair the Germany group in the Institute. So we're delighted to be joined today by Dr. Ronja Kempin, who's a senior fellow at the German Institute for International and Security Affairs. And we're very grateful that she's taken time to be with us. Dr. Kempin will speak as normal for about 20 minutes, and then we'll go to the Q&A. And as with all our online events, you'll be able to join the discussion using the Q&A function on Zoom. And so send in your question, and we'll come to them once Dr. Kempin has finished her presentation. And please identify yourself if you have any particular attribution. Today's presentation and the question and answer are both on the record. And please feel free to join the discussion using the handle @IIEA. So now I'd like to introduce Dr. Kempin, and then I'll hand over her directly. She is, as I say, a senior fellow at the German Institute for International and Security Affairs, the Stiftung für Wirtschafts- und Politik in Berlin, advising the Bundestag, the German government, and business community on foreign policy issues. Previously, she led the EU External Relations Research Group at SWP and advised the German Federal Foreign Office. And next year, she will hold the Alfred Grosser Chair at SciencesPo in Paris. Her research focuses on European security and defence policy, particularly the EU's common security and defence policy, as well as France and Franco-German relations. So I think we're very lucky to have her, and I'll hand over to you now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Catherine, for having me, and thank you very much for the invitation. I'm delighted to be with you today, even though I'm not in Dublin, but sitting here in my office in Berlin. As Catherine was saying, the topic couldn't be more timely, talking about the Franco-German relationship. I think it's one of the pressing issues. What will come out of the French parliamentary elections later this month and the beginning of July, and also, of course, how long will the German government hold the tri-party traffic light coalition, which is under stress also due to the outcome of the European elections, and of course upcoming elections in 3 of our Bundesländern in autumn and September of this year. But let me start by looking slightly back to the Franco-German relationship. I think you hopefully do agree with me that it came as a bit of a surprise that once the Ukraine war started, Russia fully attacked Ukraine, France and Germany all of a sudden drifted apart. And I think it came as a surprise to me, at least, for like 4 reasons. The first reason I wanted to stress is that here in Berlin, in Germany, we still have a government that is very pro-European. All German governments, of course, are pro-European, but this one in particular said it wanted to change Germany's attitude towards the European Union, be more of a partner, and clearly dismark itself from the Merkel area. We have the Green Party as part of this tripartite partisan government. The German Greens have always been very close to French President Macron. So I think there was hope that, once the government had changed here in Berlin, that would open up new possibilities for the Franco-German engine, so to say, to to come up with a common integrationist European agenda. I think the second point I wanted to mention is that ever since the war against Ukraine started, Germany has, of course, significantly changed its security and defense policy. You do remember the Franco-German struggles, especially in security and defense politics. The French always blaming the Germans for not being normal, being too shy when it comes to foreign intervention, using the German armed forces as an instrument of Germany's foreign politics, and with the famous Zeitenwende, especially the speech that Chancellor Olaf Scholz gave on the 27th of February 2022, I think there was great hope also in Paris that Germany now would, in their eyes, become a more normal, e.g. a partner that would be joining the French vision in the area of security and defense politics. Germany, well, not only substantially thus enlarged its defense budget, but also for the very first time, I think, decided to attribute lethal weapons to a country at war, something that usually this country has never done before. The third element, I think, that would have been in favor of a more active Franco-German relationship at a time of war is that, of course, both governments in Berlin and in Paris have been proven wrong in their pro-Russian attitude. I think Berlin and Paris have probably rightly been accused by its European partners that they have been too much inclined, too positive about Putin and his ambitions, have ranked business and profits higher than security. And so I think both, and if you do remember, both countries, France and Germany, really reacted towards its partners in Eastern Europe by saying, well, we have to excuse ourselves. You were right, we were proven wrong, and now it's our duty to come and help you in this difficult situation. So here, the two again have been proven wrong and reacted in the same in a similar vein towards Russia's well, imperialist politics. Last but not least, I think France has also changed its attitude at the beginning of the war. First, it had, of course, to leave Africa, another, so to say, I'm not saying battleground for the Franco-German relationship, but an area of tension, of course, in the Franco-German relationship. The French always wanted a more European, a more German engagement in Africa, whereas the Germans were always saying, well, don't tear us into that continent, which we hardly know. We don't have any experience. We don't have any national interests over there. So once France had to leave Africa and Franco-speaking Africa, that could have opened a door for more bilateral cooperation. And also, I guess, France, Macron in particular, once he recognized that NATO is vital for the security of our continent, that again could have opened a new pathway for a positive Franco-German relationship. We do, of course, and that would be my second point, we do, of course, know from a historical perspective that Franco-German cooperation, especially in the area of security and defense politics, has always been a history of ups and downs. We had good times when the two aligned, forged huge compromises, drew ambitious bilateral agendas, and then broke apart or did not follow suit to neither the European promises nor on the bilateral agenda. Following suit on armaments projects, for example. I'm not going back in all these ups and downs, but maybe just quickly remind you of some of the good and then some of the bad times in our bilateral history. Those of you who are my generation have been socialized, especially in the European integration process, by learning that, of course, European integration started around the question of security between France and Germany. All the ideas of the European Community of Coal and Steel, and then further on the European Defense Community, of course, have been ideas to hinder both parties, but especially Germany, to ever being able to go back to war against France. In the Élysée Treaty, 1963, the two, of course, had a whole chapter on security and defense cooperation. And I guess early on in the 50s and 60s, we recognized that the two countries very much differ in their security and defense political DNA. You're familiar with that. The French did not accept the European Defense Community, rejected it, whereas the German Bundestag brought a preamble to the Élysée Treaty saying that our security is entirely tied to NATO and the transatlantic alliance, and the European Union or the European integration can never outdate, so to say, the value, the predominance of the transatlantic link. If we try to explain why, after a very good period in time that started, I guess, recently in the around 2017, when Macron came to power, we saw an ambitious bilateral agenda on security and defense political cooperation with the two major projects, the FCAS, so the future aircraft system, and then the main battle tank system, the second huge armament cooperation agreement between France and Germany. And then we saw 2 years later the Treaty of Aachen, which has been signed by both sides. Here again, with a huge, big chapter on security and defense cooperation, both in favor of the European Union and strengthening again the bilateral component. And then a year later, the Franco-German compromise on drafting the EU's first security political document, the Strategic Compass, which had been started under German EU presidency and ended under a French EU presidency. Then again, one, I guess, has to ask why these good times are always followed by rather bad times, and why there's always a backslash in the relationship between our two countries. I guess the best explanation I can give, and this is not a new explanation, you have heard it, I guess, ever before, is that our two countries structurally differ significantly from one another. you could also, to put it more simply, you could also say whenever the transatlantic relationship is endangered or there is confronted with difficulties, these are good news for the Franco-German cooperation. Which explains why between 2017 and the early 2020s, when Trump was still president in the White House, we saw some efforts from Berlin and Paris to forge some sort of security alliance. Every time again the transatlantic relationship is running badly. This is good news for France and Germany. Every time the transatlantic relationship and NATO are on rather good terms, this is bad news for France and Germany. And this is, I guess, what happened ever since the beginning of Russia's attack on Ukraine, because Germany has reacted in a very familiar way to many of its allies in the Western Hemisphere. It has coordinated its Ukraine politics closely with the Biden administration. It has, of course, been accused for being, like too slow when it comes to arms deliveries, too hesitant, too shy. The French president, he maybe has not delivered in absolute terms as much as Germany has done, but was always the one who tried to break new ground with new initiatives, being on the forefront, whereas Germany has been confronted with, these blamings of, well, you're reluctant, are you really a reliable partner? But every time the United States was prone to go a step further in its arms deliveries, Germany followed suit immediately. So there has been this very intense dialogue between Berlin and Washington, to the detriment of the cooperation or the ties between Berlin and Paris, which of course Paris disliked, as you can easily imagine. It felt somehow betrayed, a partner of a second order. It then started to accuse the Germans of being not European, unsolidary, a country not very in solidarity with its major European partner. France. The Germans have not reacted to France's offer about, having a dialogue on the importance of nuclear weapons, but then came up with this idea of a European sky shield, where France was not consulted prior to this, but tried to, Germany tried to build up this aerial defense system. Which the French have not been very interested in, because they were saying, well, we do have our nuclear arsenal, so no one will ever dare to attack us, because there will be, of course, huge consequences. And so I guess we still, although there are here and there some positive signs, and we have summits and meetings and consultations, we do still miss this kind of confidentiality at the moment between the two partners, Berlin and Paris. The two still differ on, what will be the future, or what should be the future of the European Union in the area of security and defense politics. What would a European pillar in NATO, for example, mean? How could it look like? Would we reclaim as Europeans some power from the US? All these issues have not resolved, even not yet addressed, I guess, in all honesty, between France and Germany. This is why I will briefly touch on it, and then I guess we will have a lot of issues to discuss. But this is why why I guess both France and Germany started to be interested in revitalizing the Weimar Triangle. Those of you who have never heard of the Weimar Triangle, it has been founded in the early 1990s between France, Germany, and Poland. Firstly, with the interest, of enabling Poland to quickly join NATO, but especially the European Union. Once Poland joined both organizations, the EU and NATO, the Weimar Triangle was perceived by, I guess, all three partners as an ideal format, to familiarize, so to say, the partners or the member states of Eastern Europe with EU politics. Poland supposedly would be the spokesperson of the Eastern European countries. Again, I guess the Weimar Triangle also has its merits, but also has its downsides and pitfalls. It was dormant for quite a long time because neither France nor Germany were able and willing to cooperate with the right-wing Polish government under the leadership of the Kaczynski brothers. Then Kaczynski, one of the brothers. But France and Germany, I guess, in this period of, as I said, unconfidentiality, mutual, suspicions on the position of the other, initiatives or that have not been consulted with the partner. I think both looked towards Warsaw after the change of government in Poland at the end of this year, and saying, well, maybe a third party could, help us getting rid of our disputes and could serve as some kind of a moderator. And this is why I guess we have seen at the beginning of this year a number of initiatives, meetings in this famous Weimar Triangle format. It's still, I guess, the Weimar format still has to prove its relevance, but I guess I can see three areas where the Weimar Triangle could play an important role. The first one is, of course, to forge a common European position on Russia. As I mentioned earlier, I guess France and Germany have been proven wrong by history in their positive attitude towards Russia, and the underlying assumption that trade, at least for the German side, that trade could change the political course of the country. Poland has always been a fierce advocate for a more vigorous European politics and stance against Russia. And I guess here the three, especially since Berlin and Paris have adjusted their position on Russia, could play an important role. I guess also NATO could be an important field where the Weimar format or Weimar Triangle could help France and Germany overcome their divisions. On the one hand side, I guess Poland would join Berlin in saying, well, the idea of an autonomous, meaning independent European security and defense policy, independent from the US, of course, is for us not an option. Trump ahead, but be it like this, but this is not a real option. At the same time, France and Poland do share some armament cooperation projects together, have here intensified their cooperation, and this could help, both sides to come up at least with a serious dialogue on, the relationship between the EU and NATO, a possible European pillar inside of NATO, and the tricky question, of how to resolve the problem of armaments cooperation inside the European Union. Last but not least, I guess, where the Weimar Triangle could also play an important role is when it comes to the enlargement of the European Union. An issue, of course, publicly defended in all three countries. Ukraine has to become a member of the European Union. Moldova probably also a bigger question mark, I guess, on the Western Balkans. Honestly, publicly, of course, not. But I guess behind closed doors, there's rather question marks on the Western Balkans. But the problem here, I guess, is more for the French, because every enlargement has to be consented by a referendum, by the French public, which is rather hostile, or at least skeptical when it comes to enlargement of the European Union. And here, I guess, a Polish standpoint could help France, the leadership, but also, engaging with the French public sphere to maybe forge some better understanding of why this kind of enlargement, of course, is vital, or is in the European Union's interest. And last but not least, of course, Poland as well could help France and Germany push for some reforms. I'm not saying of a treaty reform, but some reforms to make the European Union fit for this enlargement. So I'll probably end on this rather positive note. I think it has been a very good sign that the duo has been opening up for the Polish side, that the duo has become a trio, and so that there might be a chance to overcome some of the stumbling stones that has been hindering Franco-German cooperation in the last 2.5 years. I'll end on this, and I guess we will touch on again on the upcoming French elections in the Q&A. But you probably have tons of other questions. I'm very curious and open.
This podcast is brought to you by the IIEA, sharing ideas, shaping policy.